company, which is how they raised the armories. We're a small mercenary group. I'm a sergeant. I'm a common born. There's no knights in our company. It wasn't knights that always wore armour. Commoners, professional soldiers, wore full harnesses of expensive plate armour. And on the field, you could rarely tell the difference between a soldier and a knight, depending on his kit. So we're a free company. I'm a common born. I've raised to the rank of sergeant, and I employ these men. Now, when our noble Lord King goes to battle, they employ us. They employ me, and I bring my men. And we agree to an amount and a time that we'll fight for them. And that's how they actually raise the companies and form an army. There was actually no medieval army, or very limited. Certain nobles and kings would have their small forces, but there was no true national army. They were raised by these small companies, and we're one of them. So what we want to do today is, I'm sure all of you have seen the medieval video games and the medieval movies. We've all watched Braveheart and Excalibur and all these fantastic films, and we love them. But 99% of what's in these films is absolute rubbish. The way they fight is absolute rubbish. So we're going to put on a couple of fights for you here. Now, please understand that we're playing dress-ups. Just like most of you here who are in dress-ups, fancy dress, whatever, we're playing dress-ups. We're actually not here to kill one another. So this fighting is not going to look real. We're trying to demonstrate the way they fought, the style of fighting. It wasn't just getting in a line and clubbing each other to death with big, heavy steel things. There was technique, there was fighting styles, there was fight manuals and books that were written and sold to soldiers. That's how we know how they fought. So we're going to try and demonstrate a little bit of that for you today. So to start with, you'll notice here that just about every soldier, other than myself being an officer, and sometimes I would, is carrying a pole weapon, a pole arm of many, many different sorts. James, would you step forward? This particular one is called a bill, or a bill hook. It used to be a farming equipment for cutting grass, rye and barley. Put it on the end of a stick, and soldiers love it. Now, it was often used by sentries on guard duty, people guarding towns, castle gates, etc. So used by guards. And actually, the English police force is still today nicknamed the Bill. That's why the English police force, that show that we all grew up loved watching, that's why they're called the Bill. So this one particular, take a step back. Taylor, step forward. A slightly different version, much shorter. This is either called the knightly or the pole axe. Slightly shorter, very nimble, very manoeuvrable, and very deadly. So just showing you some of the variations. Take a step back. Regan, step forward. This is called a bardiche. Now, rumour has it this is mainly used in the northern regions of Europe, although it did end up all over the place. The story behind it is that it's the Dane axe, or the Viking broad axe, that sort of became futurised. It developed into this weapon. We get a lot of that sort of information, and sometimes we just simply don't know if it's true or not. But here's some of the variations in it. Take a step back. All right, now on the very end there, Josh is our standard bearer. Now, in any company or any army, the most important person on the field is not necessarily a commanding officer. I'm fighting in the front ranks with the men. It is the standard bearer. That standard must never hit the ground. That's partly where we get the modern element where your flag, your national flag, should never touch the ground. The standard stands at all times. Now, Regan, would you draw a weapon? Josh, step forward. Draw your weapon. So, if, for example, the standard bearer ends up in a position where he's out on his own, he's got no other men defending him, what he can actually do is he can use the standard, shove it hard into the ground, and he can hide behind it. Keeping himself alive, and he can very effectively use that pole and then thrust forward at an opportune time. So you can see how, even though he looks a bit silly, he hasn't got a big sword, he hasn't got heaps of armour, he can actually use that standard very effectively. So it's still considered a weapon. Now, also, he can use it as a spear, although that would be at an absolute last resort because he's protecting the flag. So what I'm going to get you to do, the first thing I want to show you is how these big weapons are used. Form into two forces. Josh? So, our pipe is really bad and call these guys here the French. Nobody likes the French. The only thing that we like doing better more than killing Scotsmen is killing the French. So, sorry, Tim, you're the French. So the French are going to attack our standard, and let's see how they go. Give it to it, boys. So you can see they're trying to stay together. Now, if you imagine this was a line of 2,000 men, all right, halt, take a pace back. This is a line of 2,000 or even 10,000 soldiers with different ranks deep. You can't actually skirt around the side. So here you think, oh, why doesn't one of them run around the back? On a battlefield, you can't, especially not in the beginning elements of the battle. So it really is these two pin cushions coming together and trying to break bones and break a hole in their line so you can possibly get someone through. It's very effective again if you've got big axes coming in over the top. We'll talk a little bit later about what the chances of surviving a battle like this was like, and you'll be surprised. So guys, give it one more quick go. Give it to them.
Oh, one down.
All right, hold together. All right, hold. I can't have the flag touch the ground. That'll do. So sadly, the worst has happened, and the French won. Sorry about that. Okay, get up, James. You're not dead. He's just pretending, kids. Okay. So the next weapon I want to show you, Tim and Taylor, if you'll pass your pole arms to your fellow soldiers and take your long sword out. The next weapon we're going to show you is what I'm holding here. It's called a long sword, a hand and a half, a sword of war. This thing has many, many names. It's a very diverse, very strange weapon to fight with. Now, most people think a sword is fought with like this. Taylor, would you demonstrate? Two hands on the hilt, fought with like that. Right, now, if I just move forward, plate armour, not going to do anything. A sword will not cut through steel. A sword will not, or at least very limited in its effectiveness, stab through steel. So if he's swinging that sword like that, no, don't hurt me, be nice. If he's swinging that sword at me, I can take that all day. Alright, that'll do. Now, of course, he's not hitting me full force, but he was hitting me pretty hard. I actually know I'm going to end up with about 2 bruises there. But if he was hitting me full force, he's still not going to do me a serious injury unless he gets a vulnerable spot. So, if you take the correct stance to fighting a guy in plate armour, this is how this weapon is used. Tim, come forward, draw your sword. Tim already knows what he's doing and he's got his sword. Now this is called half swording. So this is not a two-handed sword. It's a hand and a half. And this style of fighting is called half swording. Now it's a very fast, very effective style of fighting. So Tim, would you demonstrate one of the techniques on Taylor? So you can see there he was able to knock Taylor's blow aside, get his blade in behind the leg and throw him. Would you demonstrate that again, boys? Oh! So it's very effective. Tim, would you demonstrate something different? So there again, he's able to use the weapon like a lever and disarm his opponent. Now, if his opponent did not let go of that sword, he was going to get thrown to the ground. On a battlefield, if you end up on the ground, you are dead. It's not because a guy in armour rolls around useless like a tortoise. That's garbage. It's simply because you're laying there like a pincushion, everyone else is standing you above you with pointy things. And if you've got a pointy thing and there's something squishy on the ground, what are you going to do? So the idea is never end up on the ground. Okay, Taylor, I think you've just copped enough. Would you kill him, please?
Oh, serious mode.
Come on, guys, give it to it.
Oh.
Come on! Kill him, Taylor!
Oh!
Taylor, I've got it. Round of applause for our dead knights. So one of the things I wanted to demonstrate there is that these guys train. We train regularly. And either one of these boys, if a blow had have got through their armour and connected in a vulnerable spot, they would have took it as such and they would have gone down. The fact that they were able to stand there and lay blows at each other means that one, they know what they're doing, and two, their armour works. Armour is not impenetrable. You can get through a suit of armour very easily. There's lots of gaps and lots of squishy bits. But if you know how to fight in it, and you know how to cover those areas, it's very effective. Okay, Regan, buckler and messer, sword and dagger. So now we're going to go slightly downsize again. So we've got Regan, who is fighting in a German style. He has a German style of armour. Now you'll notice these guys aren't wearing, wait for it. These guys aren't wearing full suits of armour. These guys are what is wearing composite armour. It's bits and pieces put together. They're professional, heavily armoured soldiers, but they're not what we would call men-at-arms. Knights are men-at-arms. Our two gentlemen that fought before are men-at-arms. So these are heavy infantry or professional soldiers. Now, what we're going to demonstrate here is that you'll notice one of them, Regan, has a shield. So what I want him to demonstrate with you is how this shield works. Now, obviously, he doesn't need a big wooden shield like a Viking because he's wearing a shield. He's wearing armour, unlike most of the Vikings. So he'll use this in a slightly different style. James is fighting with sword and dagger. It's silly going into battle with nothing in your hand. You don't go into battle just waving a sword. By this stage in time, the shield had pretty well disappeared. The wooden shield, because of the halberds and the bill, was smashed to pieces. They realised they just didn't work anymore. The weapons were too big. So you wore armour and you fought with two weapons. So you can see they're a little more tentative because these guys actually have a lot more vulnerability, a lot more squishy spaces. Oh! And he's got him. Nice job, round of applause for the lads. Woo! Yep. All right. Gentlemen, get ready. So basically what I really wanted to show you here was just give you an understanding of what the combat looked like. Gentlemen, would you form up, get your weapons together? In just a moment, we're going to make our exit. So really that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to share what combat actually looked like. So next time you see the movies, next time you see some huge bloke in a big suit of armour, They weren't big guys. They were smaller guys, they were skinny guys, but they were strong and wiry. These two guys in full harness is the size they should be. Look at a suit of armour in a museum. It's not this monstrous thing, unless you're Henry VIII. So that's what combat looks like. So again, enjoy the movies, enjoy the games, but history is very different to what we think it to be most times today. Hope you enjoyed that. We're over at our camp. Please come and talk to us. Hold a sword, try on a helmet. Our cook's over there cooking period food. Come and have a look and have a chat with us. Oh no! It's the Scottish Jacobite. Come on, Englishman, we can take him.
Oh, that's fun. Means the whole We got him. Whoa. Oi, too close. My microphone gets to another.
Just very quickly, you've seen the Company of the Cross in action, and we thank Greg Cleal and his group for their contribution there. I'll now introduce to you for a brief sojourn Sol Solomon, who's the leader of the Jacobite group, to just give you a few words about their little group.
Hi everyone. Obviously we weren't going to put up with the Scottish comments, so that's what that was about. Also, you'll notice that when knights are on the ground, the squishy bits are a perfect target for a knife. They do it. But best of all, they're a great target for a musket ball. Now, the period that you can see in front of you, Jacobites, that's roughly around 1700 to around 1745. You can see a bit of a mix here. The two gentlemen on the far side there, they're both wearing great kilts. Then you can see two gentlemen in trousers, or trews. And then I'm in what's called a little kilt. Now what the little kilt means is basically I'd be like a tradesman. So the big kilt would get in the way, so they cut it down. So what you can also see that some of them are wearing is a shield and sword. And contrary to popular belief, Scots also had an awful lot of guns. Muskets were captured out of the armoury at Edinburgh that they overran, and so that meant they had a lot of fun with the English. The other thing that you can also see that these guys are Jacobites they're wearing blue bonnets with a white ribbon. The white ribbon signifies the Jacobite. You'll probably hear a few guys on the pipe band with the blue bonnet being sung, or being played, I should say. But what the Jacobites were about was to restore James to the throne of both England and Scotland. They weren't that successful in 1746 at Culloden. They were the last battle in the United Kingdom fought on the soil. It was basically a civil war between the Scots and the English army. There was also a lot of Scots in the English army, so that was pretty messy. There were about 1,200 to 1,500 people killed in a day. The main reason they were killed was basically the Scots would line up like you can see. They'd fire their muskets, drop their muskets, and then do a Highland charge. The Highland charge basically is basically draw your broadsword, get your dirk in your hand underneath the shield, run like clappers at the enemy, and do them a fair bit of damage. You draw the sword over your shoulder and drag it down on them. Now all of these broadswords do tend to make a bit of a mess when that happened. However, the English got smart. They brought their artillery to the game. Strangely enough, a Highland charge doesn't do real well with a cannonball through it. And then the other thing that the English brought that the Scots didn't have was cavalry. So the poor Scotsmen on ground didn't have much luck against that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're over along with the Crosses boys that aren't real well. Up near the Cross. We'd just like to do one more firing for you, just to show you how slow this is. There's actually 11 steps in firing a musket. Charlie, do you want to play? There's a paper cartridge that's got to be bitten. In the English Army, they make sure that you've got at least 2 teeth opposing, so you can bite a cartridge. They put a little bit of powder down the back in what's called the pan. Then they pour the rest down, and then a musket ball goes on top. Now, these are Brown Bess muskets. These fire a 19mm or 3/4 inch lead ball. It's the same size as a 12-gauge shotgun, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a solid ball. Now, these are accurate up to about 100 yards. After that, forget about it. It's just not going to happen. So they're all loaded. So you can see how long that took, roughly about 20 seconds, maybe a bit more. Charlie, you slack. So now the comment will be, make ready, high angle, present. Okay, this is where you block your ears, ladies and gents, so hold your dogs. Fire. Right, so they were expected to do 3 to 4 times a minute, all at once. Thanks, Charlie. It's always fun. All right, so ladies and gents, we are the Jacobites. Come see us over with the boys in the plate armour and the squishy bits. Hey. All right, thanks, ladies and gents. Woo!
Jousting group.
Down there.
Justin is one of the progenitors of the modern sport of jousting in Australia and has been jousting since 1996, since before a lot of you were born. And since then, he's jousted in most states of Australia, as well as New Zealand, Belgium, France and Poland. Justin now runs the Nova Hollandia Entertainment Group. Please welcome to the stage the Nova Hollandia Jousting Group.
Hey!
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard. I'm going to be your Joust Herald today, and I'll try to explain to you what's going on and how we're going to score this fine feat of sporting endeavour in Perth. Racing may claim to be the sport of kings, but I tell you, I believe this is the sport of kings, princes, lords and nobles, ever since they worked out that riding on the back of a horse is a great way to go to war. Now, what we're going to be doing here today, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to start by getting their eye in with what we call skill at arms. What that'll be is they will ride through, and with their lances, they will hit those targets that you see hanging up there, the red and the yellow one. That's to really get their eye in, because when they are aiming at their opponent, they really want to make sure they get that lance exactly on the point. They're quite small, you'll notice that. Then they will come through, and they will ride through and try to hit the quintain, which is that large, small hills hoist in the middle there. We will score them 1 point for each rotation on that one. You'll notice our noble knights are currently warming up as they go up and down. I might take this opportunity to introduce them to you. Riding through now, Sir Justin Holland.
Yay!
Mounted today on Dante. Dante is a well-established joust horse who loves this game. Following through on Scalaba, the black horse, we have Sir Darryl Bosley.
Yay!
Now, because you guys don't know our noble knights from any other heavily armoured killing machine on horseback, we're going to divide you up. I want everyone, see this big light pole here? If you're on that side of the light pole, you are cheering for Sir Justin Holland.
Yay! White Knight.
And
We're
on
White
this
Knight.
side of the light pole, you are cheering for Sir Darryl Bosley. Well, you clearly have the crowd, Sir Darryl. You clearly have the crowd. Dante's nodding very vigorously there, so he's obviously ready. Excalibur's on.
Yay!
Whenever Excalibur's on the field, Sir Justin is not the biggest show pony here. Okay, so they're getting the lancers ready and getting their eyes in. What we're watching them do today very much was the sport of the Middle Ages. The jousting circuit was the World Cup of its day. The knights would travel around and practice this act of war, hopefully not killing each other because they want to actually meet in battle as well. The joust itself arose when the just after the Norman conquest in the British Isles, when the knights decided they didn't have quite enough killing to do and they had to practice. So it started off, the only condescension made to safety was they had blunted lances. Otherwise it was a knight, his 100 or so retainers with blunted weapons going at it. And it soon evolved into this more formalised sport that we see here today. So Justin has his lance ready, he's coming through on the quintain. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give you 4 points, ladies and gentlemen.
Yay!
I better get my ye olde woolly pad out and record that score.
Now they're using one lance for the practice runs.
There we go. Okay, so Darryl coming through now.
Yay!
1, 2, 3. I'm going to give him 4 points as well.
How much more
Now
zoom
they're
I
going to
get,
come
Mum?
through now and
Look
try
how much
to
more range I get with my
take those shields off the peg. You'll notice they're about the same height as, say, a person's head. There's a reason for that. The cavalry were very, very good at running down infantrymen who were running away. So 1 point for each shield. 1. 2 points. 2 points there for Sir Justin. His eye is clearly in. Okay, swapping the lance now over to Sir Darryl. Here we go. 1. 2 points. So our riders are neck and neck in the skill at arms. 6 points apiece. Now our riders will now put their joust faces on, so they'll close up their helmets. While they endeavour to do this in a very, very safe 21st century manner, we still have to resort to some 14th century safety measures like the steel helmets. Now, the way we'll score this, ladies and gentlemen, is the lancers have a balsa tip on them. Now, balsa wood is very, very weak in one direction and really strong when you can press it that way. If they get a hit, the sort of hit that would have taken a man out of his saddle with an oaken lance, it will shatter the balsa tip. Not just break it, but shatter it. That's what they're aiming for. That is 2 points. If they just break the tip, that is 1 point. So by getting a few shatters ahead, our noble knights can really get ahead in the competition. We have the 2 jousts today, so don't go too far, ladies and gentlemen. There is another joust at 3 o'clock. Okay. Getting themselves ready. Henry VIII, when he was a young man, was a very, very prodigious jouster. And once he actually nearly killed himself by jousting without his helmet visor down. I think it would have saved a whole lot of women a whole lot of trouble if he had have killed himself doing that. And might have changed English history ever so slightly. Certainly probably would have helped the Scots out too, I think. Okay, so Darrell is actually, if you look, wearing what's called a great helm. He has a smaller helm underneath and a large helm outside. This sort of helm was common in battle from the 11th through 12th centuries, but it stayed on in jousting right through to the 15th century because for jousting it absolutely works. So Justin, on the other hand, is wearing a bassinet, much more modern style of helmet of the 14th century, useful for both battle and for the joust. So let's just test our cheering mechanism here. Can I have a cheer, please, for Sir Justin Holland?
Yay!
And a cheer for Sir Darrell Bosley.
More people
That's
over that
the way.
side, that's why.
Well done. The more you cheer, the better they joust, I'm sure of it.
First stage setting up.
Okay, the ground crew are clearing off. So Justin is coming in for the grandstand end, and Sir Darrell is coming in from the other end. I don't know what to call it. That the bit where the sun is.
Sun's End.
Although conveniently there's some trees there, so they will be jousting in the shade, which has to be a lot more pleasant. Okay. So Darrell is lance in hand, ready to ride. So Justin's doing some donut work down there. Here we are.
Oh! He dropped his
Lance
lance.
wasn't quite right in the hand there. Unfortunately, when our knights are riding, it's like riding in a full body cast with a letterbox over your head and looking out through the hole. So the take home from that, ladies and gentlemen, is don't try this at home. Both of our jousters have been jousting for quite a number of years. Sir Darrell, though, was a little bit of an exception there. Sir Darrell decided on his 69th birthday that jousting could be a thing to do. He'd been a farrier all his life, and new horses back to front, so maybe, hitting people with sticks and horses, that could be a thing.
Yes, I know.
So Justin, on the other hand, has been jousting for a good number of years. Here we go. That looks a bit better. Far more in hand.
Whoa!
Okay. I'm calling that a break apiece. 1 point to each rider for that one. 1
Yay! Yeah, that's why it's acting up a bit. It's like, come on, come on.
Okay. Excellent hit from both our riders there. We really need to see a shatter. Honestly, little shards of balsa flying everywhere.
Oh, that's annoying to us.
By the way, if at the end of the joust some shyster tries to sell you a piece of the True Cross, don't buy it. It's only a piece of joust lance. That's an excellent practice run there from Sir Justin. Apparently Scalibur was trying to do a run without a jousting stick. Here we go. Here's lance in hand. So Justin doing a very early lap of honour. Here we go.
Oh!
That again, ladies and gentlemen, is a break apiece. 1 point to each of our riders for that one.
Yay! Woohoo! Yay! The horse is loving it.
Just vaguely adjusting the course here. We're not really moving the goalpost. That's not what's happening. Unfortunately, these are very large creatures who tend to have minds of their own,
That's true.
which isn't always helpful. Now, this was definitely a sport for the rich man because it costs about the same to put a man in armour on horseback as it does today to buy a Lamborghini.
Wow.
So this is basically racing Lamborghinis for rich men. Thundering down now.
Who got that one? White. So, yay. Point.
That is another break apiece. 1 point to each of our riders.
Yay!
And while this neck and neck thing is very, very sporting, come on, guys.
So in olden days, they'd be aiming for the head.
He can hear you in there, but only just. That's the way. Both horses are absolutely on fire today. I'm enjoying that part.
Very much so.
The horses actually probably require more training than the riders for this.
Here we go. Oh!
That's a good one. That's a break to Sir Darryl. No points to Sir Justin.
Yay!
Sir Darryl moving slightly ahead.
Yay! Yay!
You can cheer now as he comes past.
We have to cheer him on.
So we have Sir Justin on 3 points and Sir Darryl on 4 points.
Yay!
If you are booing, remember he will ride you down. Just, fair warning. And, if there's anything a English knight likes to do, it is ride down Celtic people.
Not Celtic, we're Australians. Hey! Oh! Oh! Is that point each?
I'm going to call that as a shatter to Sir Darryl and a break to Sir Justin.
Beautiful horse.
So that means there's a final score, ladies and gentlemen, after 5 passes.
Yay!
Sir Justin is on 4 points, and Sir Darryl wins on 6 points, ladies and gentlemen.
Yay!
Now our noble knights will be down the front here for a little while with their horses. So if you'd like to say hello, that's